Right people, so today let's talk about Apple Silicon once again because as everybody knows at this point, the M1 Macs have blown everybody's minds, and even the PC master race wants a bit of that M1 goodness because it is truly revolutionary stuff. And of course, Apple is not ending it here. There is more to come. And today let's talk about the future of Apple Silicon Macs and how we could see a redesigned MacBook and a potential M2 chip that's even more powerful than the M1 chip next year. And so, without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification. With that being said, let's just tuck in. So the first story comes from our favorite leaker, Min-Chi Kuo, who says that Apple is indeed working on a redesigned MacBook that's launching in the second half of 2020. Now, of course, the redesigned MacBooks in question will be the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro. And of course, these are in dire need of a redesign, especially since Apple has pretty much retained the same design for the last 5 to 6 years. So yeah, it's about time we have thinner bezels. Now, of course, we know nothing really about what Apple's going to do with the design, but if I were to guess, I think Apple's going to be incorporating an iPad Pro-like design, so a flat-edge design on the MacBook, which would look really nice, and maybe also give us thinner bezels and possibly Face ID. So yeah, that does get me tingling. Apple will also be implementing a mini LED display into these MacBook Pros, and essentially mini LED brings the best of LCD and OLED, brings them together, and boom, you've pretty much got the ideal display. You've got the great colors and vibrancy in blacks of OLED, but you don't have the burn-in issues that OLED has, and you have the reliability of LCD. So again, it's the best of both worlds, and I'm very, very excited to see that too. Now, of course, there is a question that a lot of people are starting to ask, and that is, are we going to be seeing touchscreens on these Macs anytime soon, especially with these redesigns? And what I think is no. I think Apple wants you to buy an iPad if you want a touchscreen computer, and I guess in that way they're going to keep the Mac line and the iPad line separate. So if you want a touchscreen, you get an iPad. If you don't want a touchscreen, you get a Mac. It is a bummer, I guess, because Windows laptops have had touchscreens for what seems like an eternity now, and Apple still hasn't caught up in that way. But at the same time, as I said before, if they brought touchscreens to the Mac, the iPad will become redundant. So yeah, I definitely think they're never going to bring a touchscreen to the Mac. Don't worry though, because you have the Touch Bar, which apparently makes up for the lack of a touchscreen. Now, of course, another question that's floating on the interwebs is what chip will these redesigned MacBook Pros use? Now, I initially assumed it would be this M2 chip, a more powerful, badder version of the M1, but that does not seem to be the case anymore thanks to a new leak from a Weibo leaker. So this leaker from China essentially tells us that the M2 chip, which is this chip that Mark Gurman briefly told us about, it's essentially got 4 efficiency cores and 8 performance cores, so it's going to be an absolute beast. Apparently, this chip will only be for Apple's desktop computers, so the iMac and the Mac Pro. So basically, judging from the information, it's easy to assume that these MacBook Pros will have some sort of altered version of the M1, maybe an M1X chip, and then the beast that is the M2 chip will be exclusive to the iMac and the Mac Pro. Honestly, if you think about it, it does make a lot of sense because as a desktop, you don't need to rely on efficiency as such because it doesn't need a battery to power it. And so you can go all in on performance, and this M2 chip is certainly going in on performance because it's going to be a beast. I mean, the M1 chip pretty much blew away every Intel Mac, and let me remind you, that's an entry-level chip. This is going to be a desktop class, performance-first chip, and I can't even imagine the kind of performance we're going to be getting from that chip. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that, and I'm assuming it will launch alongside a new redesigned iMac with thinner bezels and an iPad Pro-like design. So again, very, very exciting stuff coming out in 2021, and by the way, all of this should be coming out in the second half of 2021 to be specific. So I'm assuming we'll have some sort of November 2021 event, much like we had one this year. As for other tidbits mentioned in this report, the M2 chip will also be in the Mac Pro allegedly, so maybe we'll be seeing that Mac Pro Mini that was mentioned a while back by Mark Gurman. And also the demand for these M1 Macs have been higher than expected for Apple, and again, that's to be expected because the reviews have been insane. Everybody has been impressed by the capabilities of these laptops, so yeah, I kind of expect them to do pretty well for Apple in the next quarter. What can I say? Timothy is going to be a very, very happy man. He's probably swimming in a pile of cash as everybody just buys these M1 Macs up. And of course, there is more to come. So the man must be glowing right now. And on that note, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. Sorry, my hair was a mess through this whole video. I've just given up on my hair and I can't cut it right now because we're in lockdown, so yeah, I'm just gonna embrace my terrible hair. But anyways, apart from that, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification, and with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya, peeps.